Lord of the Mysteries. Chapter 1100. One book. Above the boundless gray fog, inside the ancient palace that resembled a god's residence, dark red beams of light shot up from both sides of the long bronze table, materializing into blurry figures. Just as Audrey immediately stood up, lifted her skirt, and curtsied towards the seat of honor. "Good afternoon, Mr. Fool." She wasn't in a bad mood, but with everything that had happened recently, she couldn't keep her spirits up like before. After all the members bowed and took their seats, Audrey swept her gaze and habitually began observing. Almost instantly, she discovered that Ma'am Hermit's mental state and body language indicated that she was worried about something. It has something to do with Queen Mystic? Or could it be that there are other problems? Or could it be that both factors are involved in the matter? Audrey was slightly surprised, and she curiously considered the possible reasons for this. After so many tarot gatherings, she had long drawn a psychological portrait of Ma'am Hermit. She believed that she was a rather contradictory beyonder. She was experienced, knowledgeable, and calm. She was also bold and reckless in certain aspects, like a young girl who had yet to mature. Combined with the relationship between the other party and Queen Mystic, Audrey's interpretation of this analysis was that, although Ma'am Hermit had experienced a lot, she had managed to resolve many problems successfully with Queen Mystic's protection and arrangements. Deep in her heart, she was still a young girl who yearned to be loved and cared for. And it was precisely within such a concealed state that Audrey boldly guessed that, when facing someone who had been abandoned, and one who didn't commit any serious mistakes, she would unknowingly show mercy, pity them, and help them. At the same time, due to her being a woman who was active at sea, with the strength of Sequence 5, who also had quite a number of mystical items, experience, and knowledge, while wearing heavy glasses and having interactions with Gairman Sparrow, Audrey believed that if she casually flipped through the wanted posters and newspapers related to pirates, she would be able to confirm Ma'am Hermit's identity without a doubt. However, she deliberately didn't do this. She only had a general idea as to her identity. No, Ma'am Hermit should already be a Sequence 4 demigod, so there shouldn't be too many things for her to be worried about. It's definitely not because of the war. It's impossible for a powerful pirate to be too troubled over it. As her thoughts raced, due to her lack of knowledge, Audrey had no clues apart from guessing that it was related to Queen Mystic. And at this moment, there were two matters echoing in Katla's mind. Why did Her Majesty send so many diary pages over? If I hadn't become a mysticologist and grasped certain secret techniques, I wouldn't have been able to memorize all of them in such a short period of time. What exactly happened? Has the Queen fallen into some sort of dilemma? That fellow, Frank, actually didn't want to hold a ritual and wanted to directly consume the potion. Thankfully, I stopped him. However, the druid ritual isn't difficult for him at all. Being aware of the behavior and physical structure of various ordinary animals and three kinds of extraordinary creatures. As a crazy biologist, he has already done his homework in advance by trying to crossbreed plants and animals. Next week, he will become a druid in the next 2 days. What he needs to do is write down all the knowledge and experience that he has built up as part of the ritual. Amidst her thoughts, Katla shelved her concerns and turned to the end of the long bronze table. She lowered her head and respectfully said, "Honorable Mr. Fool, I have found an entire book of Roselle's diary this time." An entire book. Upon hearing Ma'am Hermit's words, all the members, including the hangman Alger, were clearly stunned. This was something that exceeded their understanding. In the past, submissions ranged from 1 to 3 pages at a time. This time, it was an entire book. Did something happen? Even though he was the least concerned about such matters, the slowest to react, the son Derek, had noticed something unusual. They all knew that Queen Mystic Bernadette was the eldest daughter of Emperor Roselle. It was normal for her to be able to provide an entire diary. However, it was abnormal for her to give an entire book. Katla ignored everyone's gazes and continued. "These diary pages aren't connected, but they all originated from Emperor Roselle's later years." "Very good." The Fool Klein nodded slightly, indicating that the hermit could begin conjuring them. One page after another, the slightly yellow pages of the diary took shape, and soon, it was stacked into one book. After receiving it, he casually flipped through it. Without reading it, he put down the diary and looked at the hermit Cattleya. You can raise your questions now. Including the contributions you previously accumulated, you can ask a total of 10 questions. He didn't read the diary carefully, because there were too many pages this time. There were at least 30 pages to read. It would require the members of the Tarot Club to wait for too long, affecting Mr. Fool's image. Therefore, he planned to read it slowly after the gathering ended. 10. Cattleya immediately felt a headache. This was because there were only 2 questions that Queen Mystic had asked her to raise. She deliberated for a moment before saying, "Honorable Mr. Fool, can we split the questions into multiple sessions?" "Sure." Klein nodded with a smile. This was convenient for what he had in mind. To answer 10 questions at once was also a very difficult task for Mr. Fool. Cattleya secretly heaved a sigh of relief. There are 2 questions this time. First, why does one need to be careful of the spectator? Be careful of the spectator? Audrey wore a blank look. For a moment, she was unable to find any leads for coming up with a guess. She even examined herself. Be careful of the spectator? The Moon Emlyn, the Star Leonard, and the other members of the Tarot Club all cast their gazes at Miss Justice. The Fool Klein chuckled and leisurely said, "A spectator always likes to hide in the shadows to secretly control certain matters, making it difficult for people to notice and be on their guard. In particular, one needs to be especially careful towards Angel of Imagination Adam. His apotheosis ritual is to consume the potion when the trend of the times follows what he envisioned. The trend of the times that follows what he envisioned allowed the development of the times to meet his expectations?" Justice Audrey couldn't help but ask Mr. Fool. Klein nodded slightly and said, "That's right. A war that sweeps the entire world is exactly what Adam wants." This, the Hanged Man Alger, the Hermit Cattleya, and the other members of the Tarot Club were bombarded by the information divulged by Mr. Fool, and their minds were momentarily incapable of thought. Be it the apotheosis ritual or the trend of the times, all of them involved a very, very high level. It was so high that they could only look up at it. Suddenly, they vaguely understood the reason why the psychology alchemists were deeply involved in the royal family's conspiracy. And the members who knew of the Twilight Hermit Order further understood the essence of keeping the trend of the times on track. Only an existence at Mr. Fool's level can understand these secrets and participate in the corresponding game. Alger quickly found his train of thought and sighed inwardly. He was increasingly eager to become a demigod. He believed that this war would bring him plenty of opportunities, but he didn't know if he could seize them. The members of the Tarot Club were silent. As their thoughts ran through their heads, the Fool Klein let out an inexplicable sigh. This was because he had no way of stopping this war. If it was only the matter of making George III's Black Emperor ritual fail, he could jump through some hoops and stretch himself out to affect it slightly. However, in this war involving the trend of the times, even if he was an angel, a Sequence 1 angel, there was no way he could affect the overall situation. Forcibly trying to stop it would only squish him under the rolling wheels of history. Apart from Adam, who has spent 1,000 to 2,000 years arranging for such a plot to play out, the rest of them, even the kings of angels, can only change certain situations but not the overall trend. Only a true deity at Sequence 0 can truly participate in this game. It's no wonder the Emperor said that only by becoming a god can he protect those who he wants to protect. The only thing I can do now is to make preparations for the resistance in the Rorstad archipelago. I hope they have the opportunity of being liberated from being colonies. Klein reined in his thoughts and made his gaze maintain a smiling look. He wasn't blindly opposed to everything about war. The education he had received in his previous life, and what he had seen at sea and in East and West Biam, had made him have a supportive attitude towards overthrowing colonial rule. To put it simply, what he didn't like and abhorred was an unjust war. Sensing Mr. Fool's gaze, the Hermit Cattleya controlled her chaotic thoughts and said again, "Secondly, Where is the secret mausoleum that Emperor Roselle has yet been discovered? Secret mausoleum? Yet been discovered? Furs became more focused as she felt that this was material for a best-selling novel that possessed all kinds of popular elements. On the other hand, Audrey and Alger could acutely sense something from this question. The eldest daughter of Roselle probably wasn't willing to accept her father's death, and was still searching for traces left behind by him, hoping to find clues to revive the Emperor. Of course, they couldn't eliminate the possibility that there were other important items in the secret mausoleum. That might be Queen Mystic's goal as well. Roselle even left behind a secret mausoleum? I wonder what's inside. The Star Leonard and Judgment Zio were more concerned about this. The fool Klein was already prepared for this. He smiled and said, "Perhaps in the fog sea asterisk, in the secret primitive island Roselle discovered, asterisk, or the abyss." Abyss? Emlyn immediately felt his eyelids twitch. In the history of the Sanguine, there were many records of second epic devils wreaking havoc. Even when he read those materials after thousands of years since it happened, he still felt himself turn impetuous and become entangled by chaos. The son Derek had a similar feeling as him, but he didn't think too much about it. When reading certain documents, his mental state would be overexerted, and his mental state would unknowingly be affected. This was common knowledge known by everyone in the City of Silver, so he had to first receive general education and listen to a teacher's recount. Abyss. Audrey, Zio, and company subconsciously repeated that term in their hearts. In their daily lives, the abyss was an abstract expression. It was synonymous with danger, pain, decadence, and corruption. They never expected that it really existed somewhere in the fog sea.